You're listening to Panthers on Tap. I'm Curtis Rauen, joined by Bryson Karbley. We're just two fans sharing our love for the game and Carolina Panthers football. So join us, crack open a cold one, some bubbly, a little wine, some scotch. We don't care, whatever makes you sleep better at night. Before we dive into the episode, a little self-promotion. Stop what you're doing. Go give us a follow on Twitter at Panthers on Tap. Join the discussion on our Facebook group. We have over 2,500 members. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcast. Just search Panthers on Tap. We sound like a broken record on this show, but yet again, the Carolina Panthers have lost another game, fall to 1-9 on the season. Bryson, we're finally getting some rain in the forecast. About all the tears, it represents all the tears of this fan base over these last 9, 10, 11 weeks, whatever we're at. I've lost count of the weeks at this point because it's just every week is just the same old shit, different game.
Yeah. There's nothing really else to say at this point. It's kind of the same thing. Like you said to start the show, a broken record every week. It's the same thing. Disappointment. Real depressing to be a Carolina Panthers fan, as we've talked about week in and week out. And, really at this point in the season, it's all about, the growth that Bryce Young can show from game to game. And what really sucks is his lack of talent around him and his lack of coaching around him. And at this point, I think for him to go week to week and not get injured is a win for Carolina at this point in the season.
Yeah, I wanted before we get into the game itself, I wanted to talk about the fans that were there Sunday, because I was sadly probably one of about 1,000 Panther fans that were there. And Dallas knows how to show up for games. There is no doubt about it. I have never seen traffic like that at 10 a.m. before a Panthers game ever. I've been going to games for a couple years now as a season ticket holder, and it was impressive. I mean, line out, Moorhead exit. Every parking spot was taken. There was the parking lot prices were jacked up for this game. Clearly, they're trying to cash in on that. But it was insanity, the amount of Cowboys fans were there. And honestly, I don't even if the Panthers were doing mediocre, I still think it would have been that way. I mean, it was insane of how many people were there. And even on the highway driving in, coming in from the Triad where I'm at, is the traffic was impressive. Like I was shocked at how well they traveled. And honestly, they weren't as bad as Steelers fans. So I guess there's something to that, but it probably helps that the Panthers are 1-9, and I know there really wasn't much shit talking going on because you can't really say much. But yeah, just craziness. I just wanted to point that out because I thought it was pretty wild. But let's get into the game. What the hell is going on with this offense?
That's the $1 million question, man. I think it all starts with the offensive line and the lack of protection that they provide Bryce Young. So, I talked about it on X during the game, but when you have an offensive line that can't block for longer than a second and a half to 2 seconds, and wide receivers who can't separate, until 4 to 5 seconds into a route, what the fuck do you expect Bryce Young to do? The offensive line during this game showed a little bit of promise run blocking. What we've talked about all year coming into this year is that the end of last season, that's what they were kind of banking on, just a power run game. And then Frank Reich comes in and tries to change the whole scheme. And just even a couple of weeks ago saying that they're not a power run team, that's not who they are. And now, he comes out of this game and is like, well, maybe we need to give that another look because, they did run the ball pretty well throughout this game versus a defensive line in the Cowboys, a defense in the Cowboys in general. That's a pretty good defense. And, when your offensive line is as bad as pass blocking as Carolina's is, which is probably the worst in the league, if not the worst, the second worst behind the Giants. And, I mean, like I said to start the show, we're lucky to get out of a game with Bryce Young being healthy. And, I think there was a picture circulating of when he was in this presser the last time, he was reaching on top of his head and you could see a huge like turf burn on his elbow, and it looked disgusting.
Yeah, I saw that.
It looked so bad. I mean, I feel so bad for the guy because, you got of course, all the people comparing him to CJ Stroud, who's in just an amazing situation with Houston, an offensive line that's overplaying or playing better than expected. Tank Dell, who's probably the best rookie wide receiver in the league right now, and just weapons around him, coaching scheme wise. Bobby Sloak, who's going to be a head coach next year, hopefully in Carolina. He's in a perfect situation, and Bryce isn't, and it just really sucks that Bryce is continuing to get held to that standard when he's in a situation in Carolina that is really the worst situation in the league for any quarterback, probably. So, the offensive line, the wide receivers that can't separate, the tight ends that are non-existent, the running game that shows flashes but not really. And then when they do show flashes, the play caller goes away from the run game and does something else.
Yeah, I was just about to say that, jump in there. Like, the run game was working. They were running 4.5 to 5 yards a clip. Mm-hmm. And there was only, 11 rushes for Chuba and 10 for Sanders? Like, why weren't they pounding the rock more? And it wasn't like the game was getting on a hand until late in the third quarter, start of the fourth. Yeah. That one I didn't understand. Like, keep feeding that. I don't get that.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense at all. And I think that Frank's answer in the presser didn't make sense either. He said something about the game script or just what they felt was best at the time. And obviously we know for most of the game, the passing game wasn't working and the run game was working. So you just gotta stay with that at that point. I mean, of course, yeah, you want to showcase Bryce and show off his abilities. But at this point, with that offensive line and those receivers, you're probably doing more detriment to him than you are anything positive, which is something I was terrified of, at the trade deadline, keeping him with these wide receivers that can't separate whatsoever. You got Mingo, who can't catch a fucking ball to save his life. He's lost on the field at all times. I look at the list of the wide receivers that were drafted after Mingo. I think just the next 8 receivers that were drafted after Mingo, every single one is better than Jonathan Mingo right now that were drafted after him. It sucks. It really does. Obviously, I don't think Frank Reich is going to be in Carolina at the end of this year unless they win 7 games in a row to end the year. Something crazy like that happens, but I think that they're going to move on. There's been multiple rumblings and reports. Jay Glazer saying that he's got the hottest seat in the league, and that's pretty. Jay Glazer is very well connected. He doesn't just say stuff to say stuff, and you have other coaches like Brandon Staley and Ron Rivera around the league that their seats are really hot as well. And for him to say that Frank is the hottest seat in the league, I think that, the writing's just on the wall at this point. And you can even tell in pressers that, like, Frank is, I don't know if he's always, like, kind of been nonchalant and doesn't show a whole lot of passion or energy, but I feel like it's just gotten worse, from game to game with the losses.
He looks worn out.
He does.
Really does. I saw a side-by-side of his, his introductory presser in his suit, and then about a week ago, and his gray beard and his white hair at this point. And things have taken a toll, to say the least. Yeah, I wanted to bring up the PFF grades for O-line. I forgot about it last week. I wanted to show it this week because it was pretty brutal. And you mentioned it, 7 sacks.
Viewer discretion advised for this part. Do not look at his pass blocking grades.
So 7 sacks across the O-line. Icky with 1. Zavala coming back from his injury with 3. Bradley Bozeman gave up 3. And if you see in the pass blocking category, that motherfucker's all red except for Taylor Moton. So, I mean, Taylor Moton has been the rock of this O-line all year. That is clear. There's no doubt about it. That guy has earned his paycheck. These other guys, man, it is bad. It is real bad across the board. Corbett, I mean, he got injured during the game. I'm curious to see what happens tomorrow when they drop that injury report for Wednesday. But I know Frank said this week that it had to do with the knee that he had surgery on, so that's not looking good. I mean, if he goes back out, I mean, this could get even more uglier, and I don't think that's even possible at this point. But that's literally where they're at. But yeah, just across the board, just bad all around offensively in the pass blocking game. Again, run blocking, they found ways this game against a pretty stout D line, but it just wasn't good enough for Bryce Young when he was, called on to throw the ball around, which has been the story all year. And what frustrates me is Frank Reich used the excuse this week of they're playing a really stout D line, but Carolina struggled against the Chicago Bears, who couldn't get a sack for a couple of weeks. So it's enough with the excuses. Yeah. Either switch things up or admit. And I get it. You can't go out in the presser and say your guys are playing like shit. You want to keep that in house, but don't admit that you have the best guys out there and the best coaching staff when the results aren't showing up and they're not executing. And this offensive line is bottom of the barrel of the league right now and playing really bad. So yeah, I kind of reiterating what you said, but I feel bad for Bryce Young. At this point, it's just like, stay healthy, get through these growing pains of this year, and hang your hat on next season and try to make progress throughout these last 7 or 8 games you got left here, and just come out healthy, because this front office and this staff failed miserably in the offseason with who they acquired. And I think Frank Reich said it. I think it was either at the end of the game or last week. Joe Person asked about going into this season, do you guys think you overestimated how this offensive line was going to play? And Frank said, looking back, they were really good as a power run team, and then kind of deflected their pass protection. Basically kind of almost admitting that, they fucked up the evaluation of this O-line coming into this season. And if they were going to go to this spread offense, which is what they want, and Frank has said it numerous times, then they should have gotten players that were going to fit that, either in the O-line or, some of these wide receivers. Because literally across the board, you can say, and we've said it many times on the show, Adam Thielen was pretty much, and you could say Von Bell, the only worthwhile free agent signings they had this offseason. All the other ones are duds or have had no impact whatsoever for this team. So it sucks. It's a pretty damn low point. But yeah, this offensive line it's brutal, man. It's week in and week out, no matter who they're playing.
Yeah, and I believe the rate that Bryce is getting pressured is almost 50% of dropbacks. There's either a sack or a pressure. And I don't know how you expect, a rookie quarterback who is coming into the league, and the expectation of rookie quarterbacks is not year one that they're going to come in and be perfect and not make mistakes and transition and be flawless. CJ Stroud, what he's doing right now is not normal. It's not. He's having the best rookie.
I mean, he's having a special year. There's no doubt about
it. And that should not be the standard for rookie quarterbacks, and that's not the standard for rookie quarterbacks. So I understand that Bryce and CJ are going to be compared to each other probably for the rest of their career because of their draft position. But Bryce is going to make mistakes. CJ had a 3-interception game this past week. They're both going to make mistakes. CJ's in a better situation like we talked about. But I think that putting him behind an offensive line like this only compounds the issues that are expected of a rookie quarterback. And that's, that pick six that happened in this game really is probably 50-50 on Bryce and on Mingo being lazy as fuck and not, trying to catch the ball really, and then floating up the field when he should kind of flatten that route out a little bit. But it's just issues like that compound, especially behind an offensive line like this and receivers that are not good. to put it bluntly. So yeah, you have a probably the worst starting left guard in the league right now in Chandler Zavala. You have one of the worst starting centers in the league, Bradley Bozeman. It sucks to say that because he and his wife do a lot for Charlotte, but he has been awful in Carolina this season. And it's okay to call people out when they're not good at their job because that all happens to us if we're not good at our job. So it's important to hold people accountable. It's not acceptable to attack them on Twitter or attack his wife on Twitter. That is not acceptable, but it is okay to hold them accountable, hold Bradley.
Yeah, I want to jump in on that because I'm glad you brought it up because I was about to jump in on people that are going after Nicky Bozeman online. And I get it. We've talked to him and I might be a little bit biased towards them because I just have respected what they've done and wanted him here long term. But to go out and attack his wife on Twitter is completely unacceptable, and it's childlike. If I'm doing bad at my job, I'm not going to want someone to go out and come after my wife because I'm doing piss poor at my job. That's just it's ridiculous, and I think fans have hit a low when they're doing shit like that. But I just wanted to get my opinion out there on that because I thought that was ridiculous. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. It's completely unacceptable. It's not the way that normal humans operate. And if it wasn't, a Twitter where you're behind an avatar, that none of that would ever happen. You're attacking somebody's wife for the way that they're performing at their job. Just not acceptable and not good human behavior. Just be a good person. I mean, really, yeah, our team sucks. He's not playing good. But it gives you no right to attack his wife. But anyways, Corbett really surprised at how bad he played in this game. I guess he's shaking off some rust. 5 hurries, 5 pressures, a penalty. I mean, when it rains, it pours, man. And this offensive line as a unit played well last year, and they're as a unit, even for the most part, even Taylor Moton's had a down year. This was a really good game from Taylor Moton, but as a unit this year, they're playing down and it's been bad. We need to start asking questions of the offensive line coach, James Campen. We need to start asking questions. What's going on? Ikem Ekwonu's regressing. Chandler Zavala has shown no growth. Bradley Bozeman regressing. He was good last year. Austin Corbett, question mark, just based off coming off the injury. Taylor Moton playing down for the most part this season. I mean, of course, yeah, they changed their scheme to I think more of a zone blocking scheme, but at the end of the day, it's the same player. Besides one individual player, this is the same group that we had last year. That the pass blocking grades were not this bad. They were not, and I think it's just super unfortunate because I think not only did the front office, get this prediction wrong of this offensive line being a solid group, all the fans did too. Our talk all offseason was how good this offensive line was going to be a strength. So they not only did the front office, who gets paid millions of dollars to make these determinations, get bamboozled, but they did all the fans as well. So I think when you're throwing shit at a wall and it's not sticking, revert back to what you have seen work in the past. And that is that run game. That is that power run block. I mean, just revert back to what Steve Wilkes brought in, to Carolina last season when he took over on an interim basis. And man, is it looking like a mistake not hiring that man right now?
Well, it's just a total miscalculation across the board because if you wanted to implement this scheme, then you should have went out and got the players that were going to fit this scheme on the offensive line. They didn't do that. They thought a team that was a power-heavy, power-run team could easily transition over to zone blocking and spread it out and let Bryce play shotgun all day and pick apart a defense with less than mediocre talent as far as weapons is concerned. So it's just a double whammy of it's miscalculations across the board. Yeah. And Scott Fitterer said this offseason, he was going to get a rookie quarterback when they could plug him in and just start to roll. And that has not happened at all. They've rolled the other fucking way, to be totally honest.
So reverse.
it's that expectation was set already in at the combine press conferences. So March, April,
Mm-hmm.
and that this team was quote unquote ready to compete in the NFC South. If competing is 1-9, holy shit, we're in trouble. Like it's bad. So just a miscalculation. I know the injuries have compounded things even more, but to miscalculate this transition from one staff to the other it's fireable.
Yeah.
It is fireable across the board. And just sucks because I think all of us look like fools right now because we had expected and we were told that this was going to be a year they compete. And here we are sitting at the worst record in the NFL and without a number one pick yet next year. So just a total miscalculation across the board and frustrating. And I think that's really what pisses fans off, along with 5 or now 6 consecutive losing seasons under David Tepper. You talked about Jonathan Mingo. Yeah, he has been frustrating. I wish they would rotate. I'll get off this graphic here. I wish they would rotate this wide receiver group a little bit more. And you had the offensive line rotation a little bit. So you've had Cade Mays come in. You've had Throckmorton come in at both guard spots when Christensen went down. You've had Zavala in now as well. Why aren't they rotating this wide receiver group? And I feel like they don't want to put an indictment on the draft class and that they maybe should have taken another wide receiver and they're worried they want to stick with the guys they've got. But if the stuff isn't working at 1-9, what do you have to lose the rest of the year to go out and let's see what ISM has got. Let's see maybe what Derek Wright has on the practice squad. Let's see what I don't know what any other or the other receivers because they never play half of them. So or let's see TMJ in this rotation, mixing that up. I think Jonathan Mingo too he played a lot of slot in college. Why isn't he playing the slot more? I feel like Adam Thielen is playing that a lot more. Maybe slide him in. So maybe some different rotations within that group itself and the spots they're playing on the field, I think would help. And I think you saw that a little bit more this week, but that needs to be full on. This needs to be full on. I'm trying to think back 2013, 2014 Ron Rivera days where he threw the rookies in towards the end and they went on that big run in December and won 4 of the last 5 games. Ended up 7-9 that year, but then you built off of that for next year. That's what they need to start doing. And I don't care where you drafted Mingo. I don't care where you drafted DJ Johnson and all these other guys. Give them a chance and let's see what they got. Because at this point, you have nothing to lose. It's time for evaluation of what players you have and what you can do going into next season and what depth you're going to have. Because right now, the 3 starters that are in there, Chark has been a total failure. And Mingo up to this point, and I'm not totally, ready to give up on him. I think there's still time, and there's been proof in the past that, wide receivers that haven't come on right away have, become really, really good players. So I think there's patience here, but I also think you can't just sit and keep putting the same guys out there and expecting the same or expecting a different result because it's not working right now. Another thing I wanted to talk about, I know we've been sticking on the offense now for about 25 minutes, but they need to go under center more. And I know Frank was asked about it. They had, I think, 2 plays under center on Sunday, and they worked and they both were successful. I think you need to see more of that. I think Bryce is comfortable doing it. I just think he hasn't done it enough at Alabama, so they're hesitant. But at this point, you need to just open everything up and test shit out because what you had done before isn't working at this point. So that needs to be an emphasis. And then that one drive they had offensively, I thought was great. I mean, what is it, 16, 17 plays, 70-yard drive? it's pathetic that you had to use, go for it 3 or 4 times to even get down there. I mean, it's just like Bryce Young just scratching and clawing his way to the end zone.
And they got saved by that running into the kicker that really kept the drive going at that point.
Yep.
That's what kind of led to a touchdown. But yeah, I mean, your offense that has a 17-play drive for a touchdown, and then your defense falls apart. This team is allergic to playing complementary football. When the defense is playing
beating
well,
themselves too. I mean, it was penalties that killed the defense too. It's like there was 3 or 4 opportunities after that drive, and I had this in to bring up. You had, I think, 3 or 4. It was, I think, 3 third downs, and you gave up penalties to extend the drives, and it's like, holy shit!
Yeah,
like beating yourselves. And penalties, while it's on the player, they need to execute too. It's also preparation by this coaching staff too. So I think it's an indictment on them that, I mean, Panthers are one of the most penalized teams in the NFL this whole season. I think they had 9 on Sunday. Like, it's a reoccurring theme every week.
Yeah, I mean, it got to the point where it was like I was asking myself watching the game on TV, like, is the defense doing this on purpose? Like, it was 3 third downs, and they had gotten the stop on like 2 of them, and it was going to be 4th down, and it was like it just kept happening. It was like, what is going on? You're hitting them after the play's over. You're just doing stupid shit that's costing your team a stop on defense to give the ball back to the offense. And it's like, I think that these players want this coaching staff gone. Like at that, like I was running, these scenarios in my head of what was happening because it was so like blasphemous.
Now, were some of the calls questionable? I thought some of them were, from where, I mean, where I sit. It's not always the greatest spot to see, but
yeah,
I thought a couple of the calls were questionable. Did that look that way on TV, or were they pretty blatant?
They were pretty. There was not one that I was like, wow, that couldn't have, or that could have went either way. I mean, I think, you had, what was it, Deshaun Williams, who pushed the player down after the play was over. He just ran in and pushed the player after the play was over. And then I think the 2 other ones were pretty blatant as well. I mean, there was nothing when I was watching on TV that was like, man, the refs just screwed the Panthers right there. It was stupid shit that was obvious. I mean, it wasn't anything that you're scratching your head on. I think the Dante Jackson illegal contact or pass interference on one of them, I was like, okay. Like,
yeah, that's the one I think I got pissed at because I thought it was too ticky-tacky. But
yeah, it definitely was. That one was specifically, but not the other ones that were on 3rd down. So I think that the Panthers really just shot themselves in the foot. And then once the offense got things rolling, the defense stopped playing and really kind of gave up at that point, it looked like. So, I mean, this is a defense that has played well for the most part throughout this awful time in Carolina. And Ejiro Evero, I don't know if you watched the game back on the broadcast or not, but there was a clip of him yelling at DJ Johnson on the sideline, getting in his face and yelling at him.
No, I didn't see that. I didn't watch the game back. No, I'm not watching games back when they're 1-9. I've given that one up. But
no, that's fair enough. But yeah, he got in his face and he was yelling at him. And
they need that though. I mean, someone needs to light a fire under some of these guys' asses.
That's exactly what this team needs. And you have a soft coach like Frank Reich, who is known as more of a quiet and let the players lead, and you don't have to call anybody out or anything like that kind of guy. When you're 1-9, obviously it's not fucking working. This team needs a coach like Wilkes, who was not afraid to say the truth on an oppressor. Obviously, your offensive line is struggling to block. It's okay to say that they are obviously struggling because we see it with our own 2 eyes, and we're not fucking stupid. We know they're struggling, and it's okay to admit
he just doesn't want to throw guys under the bus. And there's pros and cons. The pro is you don't have fans bitching at you when you do throw someone under the bus, but then the con is you got fans bitching at you when you don't throw someone under the bus.
But I mean, just think about how it could make, like, Taylor Moton, who's played well, probably who's been the best offensive lineman this team has had for the past 5 years. And, he's consistently week in and week out, at least being a decent offensive lineman, most of the time a little bit better than that. And then you got guys that are literally all the way throughout the whole entire offensive line to his left, playing like dog shit. And every week it's how bad the offensive line's playing, and not Taylor Moton's playing all right, and these other guys are just struggling. It's the offensive line, the offensive line, the offensive line. And I get that he is a veteran leader, and he's probably eaten that. But, you know, as a human being, you have to wonder, like, how that weighs on someone that is doing pretty well themselves, but is being grouped as a collective in this group that, you know, Frank Reich won't call out the players that are struggling.
I will say this, though. We do not know what happens behind closed doors. He might be calling guys out behind closed doors, not doing it in front of me. But I agree. There's definitely an even keel, I don't know what you call emotion that he puts off, where he's never getting pissed, or, I mean, he's just like, even like calls. We've talked about it numerous times of not yelling at refs for calls. Like, he's just this. It's just like a straight line. And obviously we're coming off a guy who, I mean, instantly commanded respect last year in Steve Wilkes after he got rid of Matt Rule, where it's just he definitely, I mean, it was his way or the highway, and he set the tone. That first press conference, he was named interim head coach. So definitely two way different leadership styles when it comes to coaching. And I think right now, like you said, we'd all like to see a fire lit under some of these guys' asses to perform better, because it's not happening right now. I wanted to ask you about the Bryce Young pick, because we haven't talked about it. What did you think on the play? I'll go first, and I'm just curious if you saw this on TV. It looked like to me Mingo did not run a very good route and basically was jogging to his route. I get it. Bryce Young probably shouldn't have thrown it. It sounded like Tremble was open. I saw a highlight of that. But I just thought Mingo's effort on that play is just sloppy.
Yeah, it definitely was. And kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but yeah, so that crosser route, first to address the Trimble thing. So if you are a quarterback that's going through your processing and you have your first read who you believe is going to be open, you don't come off of that read to go to someone else, i.e. Trimble in this situation, and pass the ball to him. So Bryce identified that he thought Mingo was going to be open on the crosser, and he stuck with that and ultimately led into a pick six. It was a mistake, but, you know, that's what he processed at the time. It just is what it is. So, yeah, Trimble was open, but Bryce didn't get to that read because he thought the first one was open at going through that processing. Second, yes, Mingo was the route was awful. It was supposed to be a crosser. He kind of when Bryce threw the ball, if Mingo would have continued on the flat part of the route instead of going upfield a little bit.
That's what I thought. Okay.
So Mingo drifts upfield a little bit, and that's what leads to Deron Bland being able to undercut it. If he flattens that route, Bland cannot undercut it, and at the very worst, it's an incomplete pass. So, and then after the interception, Mingo doesn't even try to tackle him.
Exactly.
That's the Kelvin Benjamin. That is the Kelvin Benjamin. He just stood there. He jogged a little bit after. But, yeah. I mean, if he would have touched him down, it would have been a pick six. It would have just been.
I've seen that, too, a lot with Mingo, just on plays in general when it's either contested. It's just like he doesn't give it all his effort, and then it's like, yeah, it is what it is. Like, I feel like if he fights more, you're either going to get a PI call, you might catch it. Like, I don't know. I just don't see the effort there sometimes. And maybe I'm just reading that and just that's the way he goes about his mechanics. But it just seems like a lot more times than not when it's a contested or something, it's just I don't know. I just don't see the 110% going at it type stuff. And we've seen that in a couple of routes he runs. It's just like this just slow, like out route or whatever you want to. It's just like, what are you doing?
Yeah. And then when
that guy was the number one wide receiver or the top wide receiver taken the second round. It's just, it's frustrating.
And then when he is open, he doesn't have a clue that the ball's coming his way and doesn't make an effort to catch the ball because he's lost. I mean, I don't understand what's going on. Another position coach that we need to ask the question of, Sean Jefferson, what the fuck is going on with these wide receivers right now? You know, Mingo obviously is talented. He obviously has good tape from Ole Miss. He has he has shown the ability to be a good receiver on tape, and it has not looked good in the NFL. And I don't know what kind of coaching is going on, but it's not working for Mingo. It's not working for Shark. It's not working for a lot of these guys. Terrace Marshall, who has fallen off, at the end of last year, really came on, and now he's being a healthy scratch. And, you really got to start asking these questions of this coaching staff if these guys are right for the players that we have, because it's a lot easier to get rid of a head coach than it is a player that's under contract. And you got to, finagle the salary cap for dead cap or whatever you have to do. So you got to get coaches that can make this thing right. And so far, 1-9, performing at a 10% rate out of the 10 games. If I performed at a 10% success rate at my job, I would be unemployed.
Yeah, let's talk about some headlines. You already touched on a couple of them, but I wanted to talk. I didn't see this, obviously, because I was at the game, but I saw your tweet on it. But Jay Glazer's report, Frank Reich, hottest seat in the NFL. They're 1-9, not too surprised, just looking at the owner. Just want to get your thoughts.
Yeah,
about it.
I mean, I think that it is kind of surprising because David Tepper, he gets this rap that he's like impatient, but he's been very patient with the coaches. He was very patient with Matt Rule. I think that you could have easily moved on at the end of that second year, but he gave him a chance again.
But hold on that route. Is he really patient when he gave him a 7-year contract? I mean, is that really patience?
I think with the results that was put on the field, I think it was showing a lot of grace. I think a lot of owners would have probably moved on after.
And I don't disagree. I'm just saying, I know some have jumped to that side of things of, was he really, though, with Matt Rule? And I get it. Carolina was obviously, I mean, it was due, but 3 out of the 7 years, I mean, that's still pretty early if you're looking at it contractually that way. But anyway, keep going.
I just don't – I have a hard time believing that a firing is going to happen during the season this year. Even if Carolina loses every game, I think that they're going to ride it out with Reich. And I just think that that's what's going to happen. I don't think that Tepper is going to move on from a first-year coach halfway through the first season. I personally, that's what I would do. I would get Frank Reich the hell out of Charlotte because of the product that's been on the field and the lack of everything that we've talked about. But I don't see that happening in Carolina, unfortunately. I just don't think it's something that he's going to do at this point in time. But I think it is kind of common sense to understand that his seat is hot. Obviously, 1-9 when you thought you were going to be competing for an NFC South championship, and you're the worst team in the NFL record-wise, yeah, I would say that your seat's a little hot. And I'm sure those meetings with Tepper are a little bit more heated than Reich would like it to be. But, yeah, I mean, if like I said, if it was me, Frank would have been gone probably a week or two ago in Carolina. But I think that if I had to bet money, I would say he's here throughout the whole entire season.
Yeah. I think I said it a week ago, 2 weeks ago now is the episode you were out on. I didn't see the point of firing Frank middle of the season. I didn't think it would do anything for Bryce Young, and I honestly think it would just make things even more messed up for a rookie to deal with in his first year. But then after that, I mean, my opinion changed quickly when they lose to Bajan in Chicago, and then they lost in Dallas. But I'm kind of with you. I don't think it's going to happen. I thought if it would have happened, it would have been after this Dallas game because it had the feels of the 49ers one last year. But I also think Tepper's in a pretty tough spot right now that if he does end up firing him middle of the season, it's going to be a tough sell for someone to come in here. Just because he's a veteran coach, word spreads. And to fire a guy like this, the next guy coming is going to be like, how big of a leash do I have? If Frank Reich couldn't even get a year, why the hell should I get a year type of thing? So I get it. I think at this point you ride it out until the end of the year. I know I've been emotional after games, and I'm like, I'm retweeting, get Frank out after the game, whatever. But I just don't think it helps Bryce Young, the rookie, out. And then I get it. I know this offense is bad, and are they really helping him at this point? But I think when we look back on this in 5 years, save this point in it, this is going to be beneficial for Bryce Young to go through this. As much as it sucks, I think in the long run it's going to pay off. So, but yeah, I agree. I don't think it's going to happen. If it would have happened, I thought it would have happened after this week of just the takeover and stuff. And I think at this point it's like, what, 8 games left in the season or 7. What does it do? I don't think it really gives you too much of a head start. At this point, I don't think Tepper should have his hands on the next hire anyway, as much as, and that's another conversation of, I think he needs to hire a search firm when it comes to this next hire, both GM and coach, and do it the right way and clean house, bring the GM in, let them hire their coach, that sort of thing, and do it like most of the teams that are successful do it. So yeah, it's interesting times. And this brings us to the next point. This was another report that I think it came out Sunday morning from Jonathan Jones, but I thought it was interesting. But he said some Sharks are out here wanting this job. So, Bryson, who are those Sharks?
In my opinion, I can identify one person who is currently going through some issues of his own on the college level that was mentioned for this job last year. That was one of my favorite candidates. I think you are a fan of his as well. And that's Jim Harbaugh. That is an individual that can be fairly identified as a Shark throughout his time as a head coach. I tweeted about it. I was listening to a story of when he first got to Stanford with Andrew Luck, and he got there and he met with his players and talked to them about the traditions that Stanford had and how he was stopping them because they were losers, and he needed to identify the reasons why they were losers and needed to make sure that these traditions were not part of those reasons. So to have a head coach with that kind of strictness and track record that Jim Harbaugh has, not only in college, but in the NFL, took a team to the Super Bowl, has the lineage as well. I think that he is a guy that obviously, he's going through some stuff at Michigan. If you show me a college team that's cheating, I'll show you 3 more that's also cheating. And in college, it's just something that happens. There's so many rules and regulations with the NCAA. It just happens. And I don't think that a scandal of the magnitude that Michigan's going through right now really hampers Jim Harbaugh's resume at all on the NFL level. But if I had to guess, I think that when Jonathan Jones is talking about some Sharks, I would say Jim Harbaugh is one of those Sharks. And I think that he would be the perfect person to deal with Tepper because he's not. And I think that's probably why he wasn't hired, was because he's not going to let Tepper run things. It's going to be Jim Harbaugh's way. And Jim Harbaugh is going to make the football decisions, and he's not going to let you walk all over him, which is what Frank has done. And I think Matt Rule even did for a while in Carolina. So, I think Harbaugh is my guess.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm just going through, Matt Rule was obviously the college coach, up-and-coming college coach. And then, Tepper went the veteran coach. I think Ben Johnson's still out there. I know you like him. I like him.
He's going to be the hottest candidate, though.
I think that's one of them. I still don't believe, and I tweeted this out the other day, I still don't believe that, quote unquote, he turned down the Panthers. I think he truly wanted to stay in Detroit, and I don't think it had anything to do with that Panthers interview because he didn't go to any other interviews, any interviews after that. And I still think that's a possibility. But like you said, he's a pretty hot candidate. Another one that comes to mind who's on the hot seat, I would say right now, is Bill Belichick. I could see Tepper doing that any day of the week. I mean, that sounds like a Tepper move. Go and get some big name guy who won all these Super Bowls in New England and then kind of tapered off once Tom Brady left. But that's another one that I could see. But again, it's early. I really hate that we're talking about. I do. Like, I truly hate that we're talking about this. Like, there's nothing more that wants me to, the Panthers to be 5-6 wins right now, and we're not discussing this whatsoever. It's crazy.
Yeah, and two other guys real quick that we've already mentioned briefly. Bobby Slowick in Houston is going to be a candidate across the league. He's going to be a head coach next year somewhere with the work that he's done with C.J. Stroud. Obviously, I'm sure that entices David Tepper to see that he worked with a rookie quarterback and helped him to one of the best rookie seasons.
I think he stays in Houston
another year.
So. I think he does what Ben Johnson did.
I don't know. His name is already one of the hottest in the league for head coaching, so maybe he does. But and then also our friend Steve Wilkes is going to be a candidate.
He ain't coming to Carolina.
Tepper is not the guy to admit his mistakes, and I find it very hard to believe that they would even interview Wilkes. But that would make a lot of fans happy in Carolina to give him a chance, a fair chance in Carolina to be the head coach. And I think that his resume from the short time that he was here speaks for itself. And they went the offensive quote unquote head coach route, and Steve Wilkes is going to get interviews for head coaching positions.
Question for you, just hypothetical.
Yeah.
It's between you and another person for a job. They take the other person and call you a year later and say, "Hey, we screwed up. Would you take it?"
Depends on how much money they were offering me. I
can't see that happening.
I think it's a little different for Wilkes just because he has the connections already to the Carolina Panthers and to Charlotte specifically. This is his home. And he is the kind of guy, I wholeheartedly believe, he's the kind of guy that doesn't hold a grudge. He will be the bigger man. He is a grown adult. He is a leader, and probably, I think if he was offered it, I think he would take it. And then, I mean, what better way really to kind of poo-poo on someone is to come back the next year when they admit they made the mistake and then prove them wrong even more by winning.
I just feel like it'd be like that Cam Newton awkwardness, like what they did with Cam. Like, yeah, they brought him back. It was this cool, 1 or 2 game thing, and then it was just like fizzled out. I'm not saying that would happen. I just feel like it'd be too awkward. And didn't Wilkes's spokesman or attorney put out a statement when he wasn't picked? I thought that happened after they announced Frank Reich, and it was not a good statement. I could be wrong on that, but I'm almost positive they put out something. But I mean, I wouldn't mind. I do like Steve Wilkes, but I can't see that. But I do think he's going to be a candidate. I think he deserves it, and I wish him all the best. Let's talk about one more thing before we get into this game this weekend. And that was the news today. I'm sure you saw it by now, but the Colts waive Shaq Leonard. I think he went by Darius Leonard, and then this offseason asked reporters to call him Shaquille now. So there you go. But all-pro linebacker. Should the Panthers have the #1 waiver claim. So they have first dibs at him, can claim him. They need a linebacker. So, Bryce, should they pick him up?
His contract is structured in a way that he would be owed $6 million to play for a team if he's claimed off waivers. You haven't said
send it in yet? 100%? Come on.
He has not been playing good. He was cut for a reason. He's been actually really bad this season.
Yeah, he's been something with a back injury I've seen.
So I think, he's a good player, and I think that maybe if he clears waivers and he's a free agent and you can get him for a different cost, then I think at that point you consider it. But I don't know if paying $6 million to a linebacker who is overwhelmingly underperforming. I mean, I don't know. We're 1-9. What the fuck is he? What is a $6 million cut linebacker going to do for us at this point?
Well, I think what Frank Reich is the one who gave him the big contract. Well, their GM did at the time in 2021, which is 2 years removed. If Carolina doesn't pick him up, they clearly – I think this guy is still good. He's, 28? 28, I think he is. He's still young. Panthers have a need. You want to find ways to win, go out and get a guy like this. Because I think he would free up Frankie Louvu more on this defense. And obviously this does nothing to help the offense whatsoever. But when a guy like this comes available – it doesn't happen often. Yet look around the league. Everyone was shocked when they made this happen, when this happened. I would definitely go out and test the waters here. Because like I said, I think it frees up and I think it allows Frankie to move around a little bit more. And I think that'll help Burns too and getting pressure and everything else. So I think there could be a trickle-down effect. I mean, is there any way that can be restructured? I know I saw the money. They're all guarantees at this point. I'm not a cap guru at all, but it sounds like he'll probably clear waivers from what it sounds like because just the contract. I think it's like 5 this year and then 6 guaranteed next year or something like that.
Another question is, why would he want to come to a 1-9 Carolina Panthers team and not go to a –
Because I don't think he was getting playing time, and I think that was the biggest thing for him was – he just wasn't getting an opportunity at all. I mean, he was benched. And I was listening to – he had an interview today at like a Thanksgiving giveaway, and he wanted a meeting with their D coordinator for the longest time because he wasn't getting playing time. And then they said, yeah, let's do your November meeting. He went in and they talked, and he ended up getting waived. So I just think he wants an opportunity to play. And he's going to be going to a coach he's familiar with and had success with. So I think it makes all the sense in the world. And Carolina has the need for it right now. So it's like, why not? But again, the money aspect, I get it. I will understand if they don't. And maybe they can bring him in as a free agent, but I don't think he's coming to Carolina if he's a free agent. I mean, he's going to go to a team that's contending. So, but all right, good to know. So you're all over the wide receivers, but you don't want a linebacker.
Defense is all right.
And this guy, you don't have to give up draft capital.
I mean, I'll take him if they claim him. I'm not going to be mad. I don't think it's a must get. Like I don't think it's 100% should happen. Carolina has to do it, kind of thing. If they do it, okay. If they don't, okay.
I just say, what do you got to lose? Like at this point, if you want to put together some success. I mean, you might as well try something.
They're not putting together success this year.
Try something, please. All right, let's get into the game this weekend. Panthers at Titans. This is a rookie QB showdown 2.0. You had Stroud and Young, and now it's Young and Levis in Tennessee, Nashville. Broadway's going to be hopping. What do you got? Or, well, not tell me what you got yet, but what do you think of this matchup?
Yeah, this is a Titans team that is not playing very well right now. They came off a blowout loss to the Jaguars, 34-14. They were beat by the Buccaneers 20-6. This is a bad Titans team. With that being said, they're not as bad as the Carolina Panthers at this point. They do have a better offensive line, although it does struggle, the Titans' offensive line. They have a extremely better weapon core around their rookie quarterback with DeAndre Hopkins and Derrick Henry, and even down to their second and third string receivers. Their defense is not very good, though. This is a team. I mean, this is probably going to be the least watched game of the year between two of the worst teams in the league right now.
You're not wrong.
I mean, even the Bears game, like it'll be on that level. But that guy,
Carolina should have JC back, though. I would think at this point. It's my guess this week.
if you're counting on JC to come back, don't hold your breath. But
locking down Hopkins.
We'll see about that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think this is a game that Carolina could win. I'm not saying that that's out of the question just because the Titans aren't good either. But I think the Titans are better than the Panthers. I think that Derrick Henry will probably prove to be too much. I think that, the offense hopefully can move the ball a little bit better versus a pretty bad defense that has struggled to get sacks and pressures, and secondary is not very good. I mean, I don't know. At this point, it's hard to tell how the Panthers will play. I mean, I just predict that it's not going to be good. And, it might be a close game, but I don't know. I'm not going to give my prediction, but I just don't know how well this team can go out week in and week out and continue to lose and then try to gain again for the next week, gain that momentum or gain that confidence that, they can go out and compete when, they just came off of a blowout loss to the Cowboys. So no hope for me.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of faith in the offense just with Bryce Young supporting cast. But I think the defense, if they can create some turnovers, there's a chance they can pull this one out. Derrick Henry is going to be one to watch. A big bruiser back. That worries me. But yeah, I think just the way Will Levis has played, I think Carolina has a shot. But then you look at it and they lost the Bajent. So it's like, oh, man. All right, let's get to predictions. What do you got?
I got 17-10 Titans.
Yeah, Carolina, I think the last couple of weeks I've given them 17, and they've been pretty much on point with that, like around there every week. I'm going to go with a win. I'm going to try to turn the tide here. Let's go 17-13 Carolina wins. It's going to be low score. This is going to be like an NFC South, like you remember that game versus the Saints when it was a monsoon in Charlotte? It was like 7-6, whatever. That's the type of game we're getting. Like it's going to be low scoring.
Take the under.
Yes. Smash the under. But I think Carolina, I just want some happiness for one Sunday. Just one. The only thing I got going for me right now is my fantasy team is good. But, yeah, give me 17-13 Carolina and Tennessee. They get a much-needed win. Well, that's all for us here on the Panthers on Tap podcast. You can catch our episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Go give us a follow on Twitter at Panthers on Tap for all your analysis and breaking news. And as always,